But let's go on to our next topic. Hugo Lloris, bad news about him came out today, out to 6 to 8 weeks in the Premier League. A lot of fans have been calling for Lloris to come out of the team for a number of weeks now, but now they get their wish. And the question is, can Fraser Forster step up and fill the void that Hugo is going to leave? And to be honest, it's mad to me, because all I'm seeing over social media today is, oh, how are we going to cope without Lloris? How are we going to cope this? Lloris is out. What's going on? And all I heard over social media over the last couple of weeks is, Lloris needs to come out of the team for Fraser Forster. I mean, I've said all along I don't want Fraser Forster to take over Lloris, because there's no doubt in my mind that Lloris is a much better goalkeeper than Fraser Forster. But it's good to get your opinions. Let's start with Sean. Can Fraser Forster fill that void? Can he step up?
Yeah, of course he can. Of course, like, I don't remember in the games that he's played, he's made any real clangers. I know he was, I think his debut or his main 90 minutes was against Nottingham Forest in the Carabao Cup, where we lost 2-0, but I don't remember the goals that we conceded in that game being anything down to him. I thought he put in a good shift. In the 2 or 3 times, I think we've seen him 3 times this season, I think he's done well on every occasion, and he hasn't shown any of the vulnerabilities that Hugo Lloris does. I don't think there's a debate as to who is the better instinctive goalkeeper. Hugo Lloris, the less time he has to think about what he has to do, the better he is. When he gets put under pressure and he has a moment to panic, he usually panics, or he has the ability and the propensity to panic. And I think that, that's been a problem. He hasn't made any mistakes in the last couple of games, but had this injury happened the game after the Arsenal, or the day after, or 2 days after the Arsenal performance, where he was technically responsible for not only dropping the ball in the back of the net, but for launching the ball up the field when no one was on the end of it, and then creating that ability for Arsenal to pivot. Everyone was furious with him after that game. And if the next day he was down for 8 weeks, people would be a little bit more, or maybe they wouldn't, but I would expect them to be a little bit more like, oh, this isn't a problem. But the same people that are now panicking that we don't have him, you're right, Ben, 100%. I've been seeing it on Twitter. I find it hilarious. Be careful what you wish for. Did you really want him to be substituted, or are you now panicking because you don't have any trust in Forster, but you were happy for them to come in? I find the kind of flip-flop hypocrisy of that narrative a little bit, I find it hilarious. For me personally, I'll stick to my guns. I didn't think he was good enough. He shouldn't have been playing against Fulham. He's done okay in the last couple of games. I think Forster's going to be just fine. And the only concern for me is that if something happens to Forster, if he gets drawn into a challenge, like on a through ball, and takes someone's legs, and there's a red card, then you've got Brandon Austin behind him, and then you've got real problems. So I worry a little bit about the fact that we don't have Lloris as backup, but I'm more than happy to see Forster come in and see what he's got about him. I just hope that Forster can take the opportunity and grab the ball with both hands. Last season at Southampton, he was a really good goalkeeper. So I don't know why there's the panic, and I don't know why people are changing their minds so quickly on what they were asking for just a few short weeks ago. I think he's going to be fine. I've got no problem with it. I just hope that he doesn't get injured or doesn't do anything silly when he's in the team.
In the defence of maybe some people on social media that have changed their mind, I would say that people that want Hugo Lloris to come out of the team, I don't think they wanted him to come out of the team for the foreseeable future for 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe just one or two games here. So I think that's why the panic is, because we've got so many big games in this time. Champions League, FA Cup, Premier League. Things are starting to change a little bit. So I can understand the panic a little bit. But look, we got to put our faith in Fraser right now. But Ash, what are you thinking?
It's a bit of a funny one for me. I feel like it's the wrong time, because Lloris has just got the last 3 games we started to pick up clean sheets. I think the form is slightly picked up. It's just like, timing, like you said, FA Cup, Champions League. It's just timing. It's timing. And I was iffy about the whole Fraser signing in the first place, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but when he was at Southampton, he wasn't their number 1 goalkeeper.
he was in a kind of fight between him and McCarthy and Forster. I think last season Forster kind of won that battle, but he has been a long-term keeper for Southampton without really cementing that #1 spot until last season.
I don't know. I just remember he made a lot of mistakes, and a lot of Southampton fans were against him. A bit like what's happening now with Lloris. But I digress. I just think with my problem with the whole situation, everyone says, "Oh, you know." It's like Spurs, for me, have to play out from the back. And I'm not too sure if Fraser can play out from the back.
Can Hugo?
And that was the argument. Can Hugo?
No, the answer was no to that.
No, I don't know. Like, I know Hugo's made a few mistakes, but okay, let's look at the Man City game. He had to play out from the back. And I'm talking about when we're in possession, when we're in play, and Hugo comes off his line and he's like the next man in play. He's like one of our defenders, and he can't, like, there was a statistic I looked at, and he's like in the top 3 when it comes into playing out from the back in terms of like delivering the ball to your wing backs or your centre backs in midfield. His accuracy is actually not that bad, and actually playing out from the back. So in terms of that, I think when I saw Fraser Forster, I can't remember what game it was, but I'm pretty sure I saw Eric Dyer taking a kick when it was short. Like, I know. Like, I think we were instructed even when Fraser Forster was in goal to go long and not play out from the back. And I'm scared that if we play out long from the back, you're in a stage where you're giving up possession quite easily, and the opposition could get the ball back, and that puts more pressure back on our defence when we don't have the ball. The reason why modern day football has changed and everyone uses their goalkeeper playing out from the back is because it gives you more possession, and it gives you more chance to build attacks from the back. And I think Conte's system relies on that quite a bit. So that's what my concerns were with Fraser. When it comes to corners, I think he's a more commanding keeper. He's bigger. He can take the ball out of the air. He's got safe hands. Comes to saves and penalty saves especially. He's just as good as Lloris. So when it comes to actually goalkeeping, actually saving the ball, like I've got no problems. I've got no issues with him. But footwork, I'm just skeptical. I just got a question mark. That's my thing. Do you know what I mean? And I know Lloris as well. He has been suspect this season, especially because he does take a little bit longer on the ball. When he does take a touch, he takes 2 seconds, and that's all it takes to kind of close the gap on a press. But when you're a goalkeeper, when you make a mistake, it's highlighted tenfold, and that's what's happened because we've made, was it 7 chances? Was it 7 errors or 6 errors?
Lloris has made 4 of them. And
Lloris has made 4 of them. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So
and 6 points cost for sure.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I do understand the why people wanted to see him in, but I'm just a bit skeptical. Like, time will tell. Time will tell whether we can play out the back with him. Yeah, and that's my argument, to be fair.
Leeds just scored, by the way, in the first minute of the game. 1-0 against Manchester United.
Well, I don't know. Are we celebrating this or not?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah,
of course we are. Yeah, definitely celebrating. Yeah.
Why not? We're challenging with Man United.
We're challenging for Arsenal because Man City are dropping away. We're going to come up. We're coming.
Do you think Man City are going to get? Do you think their points are going to get deducted? Do you think that's a real thing?
It won't be this season. I don't think it'll be this season.
I think they're in a hell of a lot of trouble. But I don't know.
What happens to Juventus? So Juventus, did they not get points deducted this season though?
Yeah, they've already had 15 points deducted.
So then, why would it be different for City then? Why
it's a longer process. Juventus had been under investigation for so long. There was a trial and everything, and they were eventually found guilty.
You say that, Sim, but the trial only happened. So they were Juventus were initially let off in April for the first set of charges. They were charged again in December, and they were found guilty they were charged in November, found guilty in late December, and the punishment was dropped immediately. So there is the outside charge. It depends how quickly the court case comes around. But for me, I agree with Ben and Sim probably that I don't think it will happen anytime soon. But yeah,
Yes, there's no point really.
Man City are in the mud for sure right now.
Definitely deep shit. Just to get my opinion quickly on the whole Lloris and Forster situation, I'm not like distraught that he's out. I'm a bit annoyed and upset that just after a big win, everyone's on a high, everyone's buzzing. We've just kept a clean sheet against Man City. Lloris had a stable game after some shoddy form, and then he's now been ruled out for 6 to 8 weeks, and I'm just worried it'll kind of change the equilibrium of our backline. He's a leader, he's our captain. These are all things to consider. I do think he's a much better keeper than Forster, in my opinion. I think he's a far better shot stopper. I think he's positionally as well much better, and I think for his sweeping as well, I know he can make a mistake, but I actually think he's a bit better than Forster at that. I don't think Forster's very good at sweeping the ball from the back. I do agree with Ash. I think he's much better. I think Forster's much better coming for crosses and things like that. He's much more commanding. But I feel like it happened. I remember when Lloris was in really bad form, and then he broke his arm away at Brighton. And at the time as well, I remember a lot of people called for Gazzaniga to have a extended run in the team, and he got that. He got 3 months in the team, and then people didn't realise what they had in Lloris before they saw 3 months of Gazzaniga. And I kind of feel like the same might happen with Forster being in goal for a couple months. Having said that, Forster, as Sean said, he's experienced in the Premier League. He's was number 1 for Southampton last season and did have a good season last season, albeit I think for a number of years the last season was kind of an outlier in what has been Forster's career in the Premier League, where last season he was very good, whereas he's been fairly inconsistent throughout most of his time in the Premier League, I would say. But I think he's a good influence in the dressing room, Forster. He seems to get on with a lot of the players.
We said that about Joe Hart.
Yeah, true. He never played a Premier League game.
Forster came across. I remember watching in the pre-season friendlies over in Korea. Forster came across like he was very, very happy to like bellow and to absolutely command his, and he was very happy to scream and shout, which is always quite I guess I don't know if it's comforting or commanding, I don't know, but I did want to ask you guys, there's a lot of tweets going around that Tottenham may or could sign Ben Foster from one Foster to another.
I saw that
as a free agent for emergency goalkeeper.
Didn't he retire though?
Yeah, he retired at the summer and look, he's without a club, but
he's got a YouTube channel as well, hasn't he?
I'm not suggesting he'd come in. I'm not suggesting he'd come in and to take over Forster's position. But is there any merit or logic to the idea of bringing him in to replace Brandon Austin, just in case something was to happen to Forster in a game where he maybe took out someone and gave away a red card and got a straight red, 3 games suspended? Do you really want Brandon Austin to go into goal? Is there any merit to that? I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, we've also got Alfie Whiteman there, and Brains keeps going on about how we should be starting Alfie Whiteman, never even mind using him as a fourth choice.
Right.
But, it's hard to say because we haven't really seen Brandon Austin or Alfie Whiteman play for the first team, so it's hard to make that decision, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I guess. Look, if Forster's, he's been the problem with him. He's been out of the game now for good 6-7 months, so he would have to get back up to speed if he was ever called upon. But if they really think an emergency loan for a few months just to have some cover in case of an injury, if that's the right way to go, then I've not got really too much against it, because I've looked. I actually did take a look at the free agents list for goalkeepers just in case, and there really is not a lot out there. So I think Foster might be the best option there.
And it's experience as well at the end of the day as well. So it's another experienced keeper that knows the league that could add, even if he doesn't start, he could help the youngsters and Alfie Whiteman, etc., Austin and all that.
And maybe he'll give us some good behind the scenes stuff as well. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. He might come on the show.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get him on the show.
We'll think positive.
Daniel Levy will tell him you're not allowed to do a YouTube channel. Whatever you do, it has to be on Spurs
official. 100%. Yeah. He's definitely better on that. What do you not make of that comment? Did you see that comment about Levy?
Yeah, he did an interview for the Premier League, I think it was.
Yeah.
Oh, was it for the Premier League? Was it? I mean, there was nothing. I mean, what did he say? He said that we buy the best players that we can afford for this football club or something. Was that the quote?
The one I was talking about.
Revenue streams to invest in the players.
Yeah, was it that, or was he saying like he gets upset? Basically, he gets upset when Tottenham lose and.
Oh, that one. I saw that. Yeah. Well, that's just standard PR stuff, isn't it? You know?
Yeah.
I think everything that comes out of his mouth is usually just standard PR stuff, to be honest.
Do you reckon it was was it called GPT? Do you reckon it was one of the bots that helped to make the chat?
GPT. That's what he does. He sits there in meetings on ChatGPT. Corporate response to this. Corporate response to that.
Hey, ChatGPT is an absolute beast of a tool. If I was him, I'd be using it too.
Fair enough. Look, let's move on because this is a really interesting topic now. And with the resurgence of Emerson Royale over the past week or so, big good performances, both games against Man City, against Fulham. Do we owe Emerson Royale an apology, guys? Everyone's clowned on him. Everyone's stuck it to him.
He got booed off some points earlier.
Been booed off. He's been booed on, booed off, booed when he's got the ball. I mean, the treatment of Emerson Royale has been close to if not disgusting, to be honest, from this fan base at times. And even when he wasn't playing well and fans were booing him on the pitch, I completely disagreed with it, and I thought it was disgusting, to be honest. I would never boo a player in a Spurs shirt unless they've disrespected the shirt like Hossam Ghali did when he threw the shirt down, or when Ndombele did when he was coming off the pitch at Morecambe. But with his performances now, do we owe the guy an apology? Let's start with Sean.
I don't think as a fan base we owe an apology, because I don't think everybody that's in the fan base necessarily behaved in that regard. I personally, I've been saying this for ages, like, you know, me and Nick, Ranjit, Barry, the guy, you know, he's a massive advocate of Emerson. You know, I think it's a little bit in jest, but I think he genuinely has that kind of love for him. I don't necessarily love the player, but I certainly love the person, the personality. The guy has such a strong backbone and a thick skin. And I think that, you know, when you're treated that way, when you're on the receiving end of such incredible, consistent, continuous, you know, ridicule or just nastiness all the time, it takes a special kind of someone to still care, to not like feel like you're a victim, and to double down and to train hard and to come on and do your best, even if your best isn't necessarily good enough for what most people hold your standard to, or hold the standard to that we would like to see. He's never shirked his responsibility. And so for those people that did boo him, for those people that were nasty to him, that were calling him out, I think that they should send him a tweet and say, hey, listen, man, I apologize, or I was one of the guys, whatever, right? If you want to do that. But as a fan base, I don't think there's an apology that's necessary, because I don't think everybody necessarily behaved in that way. What I would say is that I don't think it matters to him. I think he has shown, similar to how I feel about Harry Kane, who has that kind of determination and dedication to get on with the job. I think he does too. And after that performance, when you see a tweet or an Instagram post from him saying things like, this is my club, this is Tottenham, or whatever it was, I'm paraphrasing, I think he's a bit of a cult hero. For a lot of people, for every 10 people that may think he's not good enough, there might be 2 of them that absolutely appreciate and love the guy for holding up the flair against Arsenal, you know, and they kind of ingratiated themselves to the person and the personality more so than the player. And look, now there's a debate emerging about the player, not necessarily on the right wing back. There might be situations where you know you're going to be up against very tough opposition that are going to have the ball, maybe against the likes of Arsenal, maybe against the likes of Manchester City and potentially Chelsea next season. You're going to be looking and saying, hey, listen, we're going to be on the receiving end of a lot of pressure, and Emerson Royale is probably or maybe the better choice than Pedro Porro. We'll find out about that. But there's another conversation which is emerging right now in the absence of Romero as to whether or not Emerson could potentially slot in as the right-sided centre-back, because there's not a hell of a lot of difference between the 2 roles when it comes to defensive capabilities. And Emerson Royale is one of the, I've said it since I've seen him all the way back a year ago, he's probably the best defensive header of the ball that we have at the club. I think he's better than Romero in the air, better than Dyer, better than Davies, certainly better than Longley, certainly better than Perisic. So on that regard, maybe you could put him in there. Maybe should be a conversation around moulding him into a future right-sided centre-back to compete with Romero, or maybe you bring Romero into the centre. I don't know. In terms of apologies, I don't think it's necessary from a club. If you are someone as an individual that has been a little bit unfair to him, then I think you should personally feel bad about that and personally maybe reach out to him on Twitter or whatever and say, hey, I was wrong about you. But For the people out there that have always appreciated his effort, if not his talent, then I don't think there's any apology needed.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you say about his role maybe as a centre-back moving forward, because this weekend, I mean, it's the perfect opportunity to try it, isn't it? With Romero out suspended, Pedro Porro waiting in the wings. I mean, why not try Emerson right centre-back and Pedro Porro right wing-back this weekend against Leicester? But Ash, what are you thinking about Emerson? Do we owe him an apology as a fan base?
Yeah, I think we do. The ones that have been criticising him, definitely. Like, he's been treated really poorly. And for a player that has alleged that he spent over £1 million in his actual own training.
Forgot all about that. Yeah, amazing.
I take my hats off, because that shows to me that, like you said, Sean, he's not someone that's going to sit in his own, pity. He's going to do something about it. He knew his performances weren't up to par in his position as a wing back. And that just shows to me that he's taken his job and his career really serious as a football player, and he wants to improve and help the team to push forward. And he knows fans aren't happy. He's not happy. He demands more. Defensively, we know everything about him. Defensively, there's no question. There's no questions. He's one of our better defensive wing backs in the team, if not our best. And I feel like he allows our team, or the left hand side, to push on. When he creates the four, he drops into the four in the back, and he allows the left-hand side to push forward. And then when he's in that four, that allows him, because he's deep, it allows him more space to run into. And I think everyone's like, oh, Emerson's not good, at attacking, as attacking wing back. But I feel like because he sits deep and he has more space to run into, he takes away players, because sometimes it's not about always dribbling with the ball, it's about running into space, running in behind. And when you run in behind, it creates more holes and more spaces for your teammates. And I think that's what he offers. He offers not so much dribbling, because when you look at your wing backs, you always think, oh, can my wing back dribble? Can he beat a man? Okay, Emerson's not known for dribbling or beating a man. Although I looked on FBF Ref, and on FBF Ref, statistically, I saw he, out of all the wing backs, had the highest dribbles completed, which was mad to me. I didn't understand how. So maybe he's not doing enough take-ons. That's the reason why it's not we're not seeing it when we're watching him. But what lets him down is obviously his final product, and that's what he's being judged on. Every time he went to cross, it wouldn't reach to the final destination. Although in the Man City game, he did cross to Kane, and for some reason, Kane went with his left foot instead of his right foot. And Kane could, if he had a better connection, Kane could have had a chance on the volley, or Kane could have taken a touch. But that was a result of Emerson coming on the wing and running up and crossing to him. And I did see occasions, like I said, when Emerson Royal is running off the ball, without the ball, he's creating opportunities and he's helping the attack by making those runs. What I like about Emerson Royal also, and this is not defensively, this is when we're in attack. When we're building from the back, he doesn't really lose the ball when we're in that transition when we're building. And a lot of teams have tried to press our right-hand side and found no joy. They found no joy because Emerson's worked really hard on retaining possession, especially in tight areas. In those tight areas, when the ball goes out from Lloris and it comes into Emerson, Emerson's able to hold that ball and help. When you've got someone that can hold the ball, it helps us to push up the pitch. If he was losing the ball a lot, you'd see a lot of chances created from that right-hand side. But the last few games I've seen, anyway, from him, he's able to have that ball in that particular area and we've been able to build on. Unlike I've seen Perisic get the ball in that position and he's made the wrong pass and then he's put us under pressure. I've seen it with Sessegnon as well. Sometimes the balls come to that side and we've lost the ball and it's put us under pressure. So that's one thing I would say about Emerson when it comes to like us having the ball and us in the attacking phase. He is quite good in that. Positionally, he's very good as well. So I'll give my hats off to him. But yeah. I just think, go on, sorry.
I think for me, like, it's a bit of a weird one because I think Emerson rightly deserves praise for how he performed against Man City. I thought he was exceptional. He did exactly what we needed him to do. And I thought he did the job of a right wing back for that specific game. But I actually don't think we learn anything new about Emerson Royale in this game. We've seen him do these kind of performances before against Man City, against Liverpool, against Arsenal last season. In these kind of games when Spurs have to do a lot of defending and maybe he can just be an outball without needing to be completely effective in the final third. That's not what his game was going to be judged on Sunday. He can be a very effective right wing back. I think we've seen it a number of times. And I think in that game, he was absolutely fantastic. What I would say is he could put that exact performance, he could put in that exact same performance against like Bournemouth and people would be clowning on him for that exact same performance, because in that game, in those different games, you need different skill sets, you need different qualities. And I still have obviously my reservations and I still think that he's struggling in those aspects when it comes to, you know, as we've said, crosses into the box, shooting, arriving at the back post to get on the end of things. I think decision making in the final third as well was a big problem. So and I don't think he displayed any of those qualities in the game against Man City. So in terms of him being a good option in that position for certain games and for certain when you need certain qualities from wing back like you do against Man City, you need him to be arriving at that back post, heading balls away when it's about to fall to Jack Grealish and things like that. You need him to be on point defensively, and he was, and he completely deserves credit. But I don't understand why anyone's shocked by what they saw, because I think I've seen him do these kind of performances often.
Sim, do you think it might have been a little bit around, like the week before, there was a judgment call made by the club around releasing one of the other two, or in fact two of the other three, right? We knew that Jed Spence was going out there, and then there was, we need to make room for Pedro Porro, which one goes. In the end, of course, whether it was by luck or, you know, a shit show in terms of not being aware of the loan situation, Doherty was the guy whose contract was cut up, right? And obviously that made the decision easier, but the decision to get rid of one of them had already been made before that whole situation had become clear. And so the fact that the club had basically backed Emerson over Doherty, to me, I think, like, maybe created an argument, created a conversation with some people who weren't really sure which one they preferred. There was a lot of people that were saying, stop playing Emerson, play Doherty in the weeks prior. And a lot of other people were saying, don't play Doherty, play Emerson. And so the fact that the club made the decision to cut one of the two, I think, was certainly a catalyst towards a feeling that the club obviously fancied Emerson over Doherty. And then when you come in and see Emerson putting in what you could also make the argument for is like a career-defining performance. I take what you're saying, Sim. 100% agree with you. We didn't necessarily learn. We already knew he was a good defensive fullback or wingback, but we still haven't learned anything more about his attributes going forward. But he certainly was playing for his shirt, right? And he knows Pedro Porro is coming in and is about to take his place in the majority of the games, because the majority of the games that we play, we're not going to be facing Jack Grealish down that side of the pitch. So I think a lot of fans are going to be looking at Emerson, and not only like Ashmatic reminded me of the dedication to his craft, paying that $1 million to get the extensive report on his performance versus the fella at PSG, plus the fact that he takes all that heat, plus the fact that he gets on with his game, plus the fact that he's always talking about this is my club, all of those things, plus a commanding performance. I think it won a lot of hearts and minds about the player. And everyone now is excited about the fact that you've got a player in Pedro Porro that, you know, for 17 games in a season, you've got the guy that's going to be able to create that overlap, create that ball, that offensive side that's going to redefine our right-hand side going forward. But in those 2 or 3 games where you need somebody there that's just going to sit back and try and pocket somebody, Emerson can do that job. And I think that that's a good thing.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree with that, and I think Emerson just deserves more respect for what he can do, as opposed to maybe a lot of criticism for what he can't do. Unfortunately, in a lot of games, though, what he can't do has been exposed, and that leads to frustration. I agree with Ben when it comes to any of the over the top criticism when it comes to booing him off the pitch, ironic cheers when he's substituted, and all these kind of things. I think are completely uncalled for. I never thought there was any reason for that, really, from the fan base. I thought that was just them taking their frustrations out on a player which didn't deserve it. And I guess maybe a lot of people saw him as a symbol of what was wrong at Tottenham.
At the club, yeah.
But I don't think he deserved that. And I'm glad that he's getting the recognition and the praise for what good positive attributes he can bring, and especially in a game like Sunday where you got such dangerous opposition. He was invaluable in that game. You can't deny it. I'm just saying you could literally copy and paste that exact performance into a game against a lesser opposition, and no one's going to give him credit for it. Basically,
do you think he could? Do you think he could play on the left? Because obviously lots of people have been complaining about the left wing back position, and I know he hasn't played there a lot. He has featured there. I can't remember what game it was. He came on as a sub.
The game before.
It was a game before, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was a game before.
Against Fulham, he was inverted. I think you even saw him inverted against Preston as well.
Yeah, that's right. Preston, he played. I thought he played well. Is it Preston or Portsmouth? Yeah, go on.
Portsmouth.
I don't see why not, Ash. Though, like we clearly need defensive solidity more on that left-hand side. We've seen Perisic get overloaded at times. We've seen Longley and Davis get overloaded at times. So a bit more defensive solidity on that left-hand side wouldn't go amiss, to be honest. And I'd like to see us try that with maybe Porro on the right and Emerson on the left, to be honest.
But I think you're completely taking away any attacking threat.
But the thing is, Sim, when we do attack, it predominantly comes down the left-hand side. And I think that is a deliberate tactic where we overload one side and leave one side empty so we can switch the play. So I'm just wondering, now that our right side is our stronger side, we overload the right side, and then that could open up space for Son, because Son could pull wider.
That's the point I've been making, mate. That's the point I've been making. I think you're going to see a second half resurgence. I was calling for Sonny to be dropped against Fulham, and in the previous games, I didn't know against Fulham going into the game that both Brian Hill and Richarlison were both ill or injured. So I had to retract my frustration once I found that out. But generally speaking, I've been someone that's been a proponent of saying, listen, the one time this season you've seen Heung-min Son perform well before the last couple of games was in the half an hour he had against Leicester, and people were saying, well, that proves the point that using him as a sub was silly. Look, he's back to his best. Let's start him every game going forward. And I thought that was the wrong way to interpret it. I thought it was like, no, the one time we've used him as a sub, you've seen the best from him. Why haven't we used that and invoked that same strategy again? And so whilst I say all that, I still genuinely think, to your point, Ashmatic, and to the point I was making earlier, that with Porro on the right, you can now switch things up. You can throw more balls down the right. And when you do play the switch, you're going to have Heung-min Son, who's going to have a lot more space, which is what he used to be excellent in the seasons gone by. So I think Porro's inclusion is going to be potentially the reawakening of a beast in Heung-min Son for the second half of this season.
Also, he's actually scored quite a few of his goals on the right-hand side, I've noticed. Obviously,
he played Preston,
Yeah, Preston, even Leicester, when he scored against Leicester, he scored two of them were from the right. And he gets a lot of his attacks as an attacking midfielder down the centre. I think he's such a threat, running in behind and not running behind, just running directly, dribbling with the ball through the centre. So it'll be interesting to see if we see a lot more of that in the Leicester game again.